Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perfectly Good Podcast, the only podcast on the internet where we are counting down every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. Joining me today is my sister in all things Hyatt, who does have a chunk of my soul, Sylvan.
Thank you. I was wondering what phrase could he possibly pull out that does not sound like I am putting Jesse in mortal danger for the song
Yes.
today.
Yes, I am Jesse Jackson, and here is kind of my pulling us off track right away. I just couple this week, and as recording this, it's right around Valentine's Day, but that's not what the story's about. It's about the time period. But someone said, introduce yourselves when you do a podcast. They said, I'm listening to a podcast and they are 20 minutes in. They are bantering back and forth. I don't know who they are. I don't know the purpose of the podcast. This makes no sense. And I said, well, Sylvan and I may not do everything perfect, but we do make a point of every episode who we are and why we're here. So that gets us ahead of some.
Yes, and we're a couple of nobodies who love John Hyatt, and we're here because we love talking about John Hyatt. And you had the brilliant idea of adapting what has been done with other artists, of going in alphabetical order, song by song. And I was just lucky enough to hang on to your coattails of having the technical skills of putting a podcast together. So
yeah, when we hit our year anniversary, we'll talk about that we'll make a note to talk about the origins. So tonight we are talking bite marks. I will tell you my quick thoughts, and then I want to hear just the facts. I'm watching Last of Us, the HBO series. About, it's not really zombies, it's people that are controlled by fungus but they act like zombies. And then The Walking Dead and all these zombie movies. And I'm like, they should have picked part of this and done a cover of this for The Walking Dead or something.
That would be perfect. Yeah. For a while it was like, every time I went to the movies, it seemed like there was a John Hyatt song, which was wonderful and exciting.
Yes.
But it has slowed down a bit. So yeah, Hollywood, there is nothing that cannot be improved by putting the John Hyatt song in the soundtrack. And this is a perfect example of perhaps not the first thing that you would think of. Zombies, bite marks.
There we go.
Yes.
So how about just the facts?
Just the facts. Okay. This is track number 2 on Mystic Pinball, which was released September 25th, 2012. It was the second album produced by Kevin Shirley, Kevin the Caveman, who had great respect for John. And personally, I am hoping that they have another album. Unfortunately, there are only the 2. The backup band was Doug Lancio, Patrick O'Hearn, Kenny Blevins, my absolute favorite of the drummers that John has worked with, and Doug Henthron. I'm probably going to mispronounce that name. I'm very sorry. This is another album that came together very quickly. It was recorded in 4 days, and it peaked at number 39 on the Billboard charts for 2 weeks. And that pretty much covers the facts of the song. It's very short. If I'm looking at the lyric booklet, and there's this tiny little half a page of this song right next to We're All Right Now, the kickoff. And then the rest of the album, they're all kind of like trying to fight for space. And this one just has like a total of about 12 lines if you don't count the repeated chorus. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was not as familiar with this song. One of the things that I wanted to do when you and I started doing this is to spend more time with some of the lesser known. So I was really glad to hear this song. It's an interesting song. As we you'll hear us next week. We're going to talk about Blue Telescope, but I had Bite Marks of Blue Telescope on the, shuffle. And so it was kind of black and white.
Yes, it was a
Spicy
jarring
calm.
change.
Yes,
Yes.
it is. It's like, oh, okay. What I think it's a good song. I don't think it's a great song. I think he's having fun with it.
Mhm.
What's your thoughts?
Agreed. And so it was an interesting combination with Blue Telescope because I think both are taking the idea of an image or a simple metaphor and trying to spin it out of how far it can go. I don't think John is intending to talk about zombies or cannibalism here. I
No.
think it's taking a chunk out of my soul.
Yeah.
And that kind of when emotional pain becomes physical pain and tearing someone apart. That being said, it's an interesting concept that I kind of feel John doesn't deliver on the way that I know he can if he's taking an interesting concept and just spinning it out. Drive South is not a complicated idea, but he nails it out of the park of like what it means to get behind the driver's wheel and run away from something or drive towards something that you think might be warmer or sunnier or whatever. Here, it's like he's obviously got this tension with this person that has hurt him, going through the jugular vein, bared incisors, insane eyes. But I don't kind of get it. I gotta be honest about that. And even I love an obscure reference in the middle of a John Hyatt song. We've got I'm tender-hearted, ain't no Lee Van Cleef. Well, I had to open up Wikipedia to learn that Lee Van Cleef was a spaghetti Western actor who was on a lot of things, including The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I'm sorry, you can take away my American passport. I was not familiar with that classic.
Okay.
But also just kind of interesting that, classic Western star happened to be born in New Jersey. So that brings us back to Bruce.
Yes.
So what does that have to do with anything else that's going up in this song? The tough guy image, cowboys, beef, cattle, sure, any of those things. But it doesn't enlighten me into what character John is trying to live in this song. It doesn't tell me anything about how he feels about anyone else that he's interacting with, even though obviously there's this animosity. Is that the right word? Is it fear toward the bite marks baby that he's talking to? What do you think?
So this is almost too specific. It
Hmm.
is too almost on the nose. Oh, you've ripped my heart and left it in 1,000 pieces. You've ground me up and spit me out. We haven't we've done this a little bit. Like think of She Loves the Jerk, Love That Harms, both from Riding with the King, right? They sell the story. She loves the jerk. I have this crush, this desire to love this woman, and she's stuck with the bad guy. And not necessarily someone that hurts her, but someone physically, but someone who's just not good for her. She loves the jerk. That sells that story. I think you are pointed right on this. I don't know if this sells the story that she broke my heart. She, and I don't want to say he's trying too hard, but something along that. You like it rough, down in the mud. Your idea of fun is drawing blood. You tear the meat from the heart of a thing until there's nothing worth remembering. That's very hard. That's very harsh. And it, it, I just don't know. Now, the upbeat tempo and the music going with it maybe takes this a little bit off the anger scale, just a little bit, keeps it more a little fun, like I'm over exaggerating how bad she
Yeah.
treated me.
So I was wondering if that was an intentional thing. And that's why I
Yeah,
was kind of feeling like maybe it just didn't land as it was intended, that it's
right,
supposed to be funny. And
right,
it's supposed to be one of those breakup songs that like you talk about how absolutely awful it was and you can't help but laugh,
right.
you know, um,
Mhm.
which can be done really effectively.
Yes.
Or if it's like the songs that you were just talking about, She Loves the Jerk and whatever, that like you're feeling that heart being ripped out of your
Yeah.
chest. Um, it it, it kind of doesn't exist either way. And we were talking about how we weren't able to find any covers of that. And maybe that's just because, you know, no one else knew what to make of the song. But I would love to hear someone go really far in one of those two directions and
Yeah.
see what happens with it. Yeah.
Well, and like you go right for the jugular vein, bared incisors, and your eyes are insane. I have to handle you with chain mail gloves. There is no name for your kind of love. And that's what I was like, hey, is this a song from, The Walking Dead? Is this a werewolf? Like, is he in love with a werewolf? Like,
Yeah.
right, and it is, you're right. Like, one of the things that uh scholars talk about, and once again, take a drink, we're going to mention Bruce, is originally Born in the USA was this blues version that made it very clear that this is a song that it is criticizing how Vietnam veterans were treated. And instead, he recorded it as this rock anthem with this booming Born in the USA. So the
And
mixture of the lyrics saying that maybe we shouldn't be proud we were born in the USA. Maybe we shouldn't be proud of what this country has done to our people who we owe so much to. But this vet still clings on to, but I was born in the USA. That is part of my due. So that's a bit specific creative choice that Bruce did to make this. So I think once again, John's not joining us this week. I think he was trying to say, let me do these, she's ripping me apart in 1,000 pieces, with this kind of energetic sing, and it will give us this contrast will make both of them more effective.
I totally buy that as a concept. And it's just surprising to me that Kevin Shirley, who was able to do so much to push John a little bit further to get
Yeah.
these great performances that hit in the way that they're supposed to, it still didn't work. The magic, the chemistry wasn't working for me, at least on this. And, I'm gonna relate something that might just be completely ridiculous and not have any bearing on how I should be judging this song.
Yeah.
But I remember I tried to find it on YouTube so that we could link it. John performed on Imus in the Morning and
Okay.
while he was promoting this, and Imus went off about, hey, I really love that song, Bite Me. And he couldn't get out of his head that the song was Bite Me. And John's like, it's Bite Marks. And he's just like, oh, I just think it's funny that you're saying like, yeah,
Yeah.
just take a bite out of me. And like, it was obvious that he heard something and John was kind of trying to nudge him like, no, that's not what I intended, which he
Hmm.
never does. It's like, it was kind of the perfect example of like, I don't think this is saying what you wanted to say.
Yes. Yeah. I, I I had not heard that story, but I love that story. Um, I have not heard this live. I don't know if this is something that was regular in the playlist.
It wasn't for long if it was.
Yeah.
I feel like it might have been,
Mhm.
but I can neither prove that or
Okay,
disprove
good.
that based on
Yeah.
my bootleg collection at this point.
And we spend a lot of time usually on this going through the lyrics, but I don't think there's a lot of reason to, because in the past, we've talked about how the lyrics are clever and there is an imagery and there is some vagueness to it, but at the same time specific. You've mentioned Lee Van Cleef, the one of the guys who has a long history of playing tough guys in westerns and things. Was the most interesting part of it. Like you said, I think that's really, really interesting. Throwing that in there, a random, like, what, and you're talking about sometimes he watches TV. Maybe there was an old Western on, right? Yeah, but I just don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And, this time period was also the peak of, the vampire Walking Dead and all
Yeah.
those things. So, maybe he was just kind of having some fun with the idea of
Yeah.
fighting and blood and all that. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one I just, a hit and a miss. Let's try,
Yeah.
like this is like they can't all be gems, and this is one I just don't get. um I don't see a lot, and I'm curious, once again, we always throw this out to our listeners. If you disagree with this, or if you have an idea of what we're missing, I would love to know this.
No, I mean, there's nothing I love better than having a new way of listening to a John Hyatt song.
Yeah.
I just am not sure what that would be in this
Yeah.
case.
This
So
may be our shortest episode ever.
so
We
far,
we were worried about that, but hey, we got to cover them all.
yeah.
But we did get some feedback, didn't we? Or before, oh wait, anything else on this song before we move to feedback?
I think that'll do it for the song. But
Okay.
yeah, we did get some feedback on another song that we talked about for much longer.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jamie Rogers, for reaching out to us on Facebook. I'm just going to go ahead and blush profusely while I read his post. Jesse Jackson and Sylvan Groth, you absolutely knocked it out of the park on this week's podcast. Before I Go is a precious pearl of a song, and I do not disagree with anything that you said. I definitely see it as a gospel song in so many respects. Jesse, I was surprised that you did not compare some of the imagery in this song to Springsteen's My Beautiful Reward, which is one of my favorite of the lesser known Boss songs. Both such beautiful songs with unmatched lyricism. Keep up the good work. You guys are awesome. Jamie, you're awesome.
Jamie,
Thank
you are
you.
awesome. First off, anytime someone wants to compliment us, we love it. And if you can throw a Springsteen reference in there, you are winning my heart. So thank you so much.
Yes.
That is awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. Not only did Jamie Rogers leave that beautiful note on the Facebook page, he went to iTunes and left us a review, Sylvan.
Oh, how lovely. Jamie, you're a rock
Yes.
star.
He said 5 out of 5, the only podcast that discusses, analyzes, and rates every song by America's most underrated songwriter, the great John Hyatt. Highly recommended. Jesse and Sylvan have a great time reliving the Hyatt catalog, and their enthusiasm for the man and his music is infectious. I sometimes agree and sometimes disagree with their interpretations and evaluation of individual songs, but the podcast is always entertaining and thought-provoking. 5 stars. And
Cool.
the night he called it truly a perfectly good podcast.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. We got double shots of love. So now we definitely need him on the podcast.
Absolutely. Come
Yes,
on, Jamie.
that's right.
Yeah. And so Jamie reached out on Facebook through the John Hyatt fans page. That's a great place to reach us. We also have our own Perfect Good podcast page. And just thank you so much for everyone who's listening. Anytime you want to send us a comment, that's great. You want to come talk to us. I can't wait for our first guest episode of Perfectly Good Podcast.
Yeah, to once again, like, I always love to pull back the curtain, right? Sylvan often talks about that we do have a shared document that lists every song and a schedule of when we plan to talk to them. If we've already talked to them, what was our score? And then I add when they're going to be released. And there is, there's a column for both of our scores, and there's a third column for guest. And it's so sad because he got NA, 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 NA. And I'm like, one day someone will want to join us.
Yes.
Yes. So that is awesome.
Speaking of which, I guess it's time to fill in those columns for Sylvan and Jesse's score on bite marks.
You want me to go first?
I do want you to go first. I'm chickening out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give it a 1. It's probably musically, it probably doesn't deserve that, but I just don't think this is quite, it just misses the mark. So I'm gonna give it a 1.
And as a reminder to our listeners, our scale is 1-star song is still a good song because it's John Hyatt, but it's not up to the standard that we would normally say a John Hyatt song is. That being said, I was really teetering if I could go 1 or I'm going to land at 2. Okay. Because like you were saying, it is interesting musically. There's a funny little obscure reference in there. So there's an effort. And I think he was trying for something. As I said, I feel like someday I'm going to hear a version of this that's going to be like, now I get it. But I shouldn't have to work that hard. So I'm going to go a 2-star, which on my rating scale isn't that I just don't get it at all. It's I'm going to skip it every once in a while, which I totally have.
Okay, very nice. If you want your review to be read on the podcast, go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, leave a review. You also can leave comments on our different on either the John Hyatt fan club or our own podcast, and we will certainly want to share that. Sylvan, if they want to reach you, the best way?
Best way, I'm on Twitter as Sylvan Green Eyes. I'm Sylvan Groth on Facebook, and track down our Google site, as Jesse said, where you can look at what we have upcoming, and you can find all our information on there too.
Yes, and I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. As always, we would love to hear from you and share your thoughts, good, bad, indifferent. And if you have any feedback on what you'd like more of us or less of us to do on the podcast, let us know. Well, Sylvan, this was a short one, but that's good. We go through them all, alphabetical order.
Another one down, more to go. And what we're gonna need to get all the way to Zero House is to have a little faith. So
have a little faith, listeners. Be kind, be safe. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Baby, we can come on home and put the cow horns back on the Cadillac and change the message